Commanders hire Dan Quinn to match with their new general manager, Adam Peters, to lead this franchise into the future.
The way that we live is not for everybody, okay? It's not, all right? Because we're going to run and put our bodies on people in a violent manner.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, had a chance to take a look at the film last night with the mob, and I must say, I was impressed with the defensive side of the football more than I thought I would be. My expectation going in was, okay, the officials let us get away because it was a physical game, and the officials let us get away with a lot, and they let the Bears get away with a lot of things. And I thought I would go in. I remember very vividly seeing a snap on a third down where Benjamin St. Juste was molesting DJ Moore. Moore complained and talked a little trash to Benjamin St. Juste. He complained to the official, and Juste was like, "What, bro? What? Like, what you complaining about?" And they showed the replay, and I was like, "Yo, Juice was mugging this man." I'm like, most times you're gonna get flagged for that. And I thought to myself, this is probably a byproduct of the Bears defense, how we're looking, offense. We're looking really good. We're getting off because you can't see the entire field when you're watching the TV copy. So you can only go off of the result. And the results were Bears were going 3 and out. Bears would move the football. We get a sack. They're out of field goal range. They got a punt. Bears would get 1 first down. Then they got a punt. Bears go 3 and out. Like, that was how the first half went. They weren't running the football all that well. Caleb Williams was not, very accurate nor consistent. His legs were really the bigger issue in the first half. He had 33 yards, 4 of 13, 33 yards through 3 quarters of football. So I found it hard to believe that the defense played that well, right? I was like, a better quarterback. And I did feel this way after watching the film. A better quarterback, a veteran quarterback, a quarterback that knew where to go with the football, a quarterback that remained calm and poised in the pocket, as Caleb did eventually get to later on in the game. He became a lot more poised and comfortable, even with trash around him as the game wore on, but it took him a while. There were missed opportunities early in the game because he was just antsy. He was on edge. There was pressure. It's like his heart was racing and his mind was racing, and he couldn't slow himself down. But I also have to credit this defense. There weren't many guys open, and I don't know if that is the route concepts. I don't know if it was what they were doing offensively, but and some of it too was the Bears' lack of execution. There was 1 third down where they tried to run a mesh concept, and instead of the Bears receiver and tight end, who they were running the mesh concept with, instead of them, Cole Kmet and DJ Moore, running close to each other, not crashing into each other, but instead causing a traffic jam between Commanders players, they themselves ran into each other, and that allowed Benjamin St. Juste to go over the top of the mesh, get right back on top, in phase with DJ Moore and take that option away. Whereas we've seen in games where they run that mesh concept or some sort of pick play, and we act like we've never seen it before, and somebody ends up wide ass open. That wasn't the case in this game. These guys were glued to receivers. A lot of times when Caleb held on to the ball or he started running around like a chicken with his head cut off and he was trying to make something happen, a lot of it was they weren't open. And you got to give credit to this defense. They communicated well. I thought the pressure was phenomenal in the first half. It slowed down considerably in the second. And obviously the run defense got worse as the game wore on. But early on, the run defense was fantastic. And so you're seeing this group kind of evolve right before our very eyes. And I'm going to be honest with you. After the first 3 weeks of the season, no chance in hell we would be at this point with this defense. None. After 5 weeks of football after going on the road and devouring Arizona and then coming home and doing the same to Cleveland, I started to think maybe, just maybe, this defense can turn it around and be formidable. I knew the dominant, team carrying, turnover inducing defense that I thought would be menacing before the season started. That ship sailed a long time ago, and it's never coming back this season. But the hope of this defense being just solid, because with the way we can score, with the way we can move the ball, with the dynamic nature of our offense featuring 5, you don't need this defense to be all world. You don't need it to be the 2 Bucks or the 2000 Ravens or the 85 Bears. You just need it to be solid, right? This defense is solid. That's another one of those, hey, that changes things type of situation. If this defense is solid, we got a chance. Now, again, I think you got to chalk some of that up to Chicago. Their ineptitude. They tried a fullback dive to a backup center. Like, we got to take it with a grain of salt, right? And I'm aware of this. I don't want to make too much of it. But that's Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, and DJ Moore. Those are no slouches. Those corners, Mike Samerstill, Noah Igbenogany, and Benjamin St. Juste, for the most part that day, were in the hip pocket of those receivers. You throw the safeties in there who actually had a really good game outside of the one big run by DeAndre Swift, where I thought Jeremy Chin took a horrendous angle. And I put him as the biggest culprit as to why that play went to a touchdown, turned into a touchdown. He could have capped that run at 21 yards. Instead, he turned into a 60, 61 yard, whatever run it was. And a game changer. That run single-handedly changed the entirety of the game. The game was never the same after that run. I don't think the Bears were going to score in the game if they don't get that big run. It just didn't feel like they were going to be able to do enough to score. That run changed everything. But outside of that run, the safeties played well. Quan Martin is a menace. He is everywhere, and he is coming down and making tackles all over the field. And I feel as confident about him as a tackler and as a guy that's going to come down there and stick his nose in the fray, no matter what, as I've been with the safety on this team in a long time. He's phenomenal. He really is. I'd like to see him take it away a little bit more. But even when they tried the deep ball to DJ Moore over the top, he was right there. Right? He was right there. So it was a really well-played game by the defense. And I must say, I was shocked because I thought I was going to go in, watch that film, and come away saying, yeah, Caleb just didn't see the field well. Guys were open. There were opportunities. Look, I think, Caleb missed on some things early in the game, but for the most part, we did a good job of covering. I like the way that the rush is starting to coordinate now. You're seeing these twists and these games that they're running. It looks a little bit more fluid. They still got work to do. It's still not crisp and sharp, but it's a lot more fluid than them running into each other and running in the same gap, occupying the same space. Like, they're rushing with purpose. They're rushing with intent. They're being disruptive. We still got to get guys on the ground. We got to do a better job of that. Caleb really made us look silly too many times in that second half in particular. Well, hell, really in the first half too. Really throughout the game, we didn't do a good enough job of corralling Caleb Williams. And that's been an issue with this team. If you look at the way this season has gone, it really hasn't mattered if we faced a mobile quarterback outside of Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson, who neither really bothered to run all that much. Maybe that was a good job by us. Maybe they just didn't bother to try to run that much in that particular game. Whatever the case may be, when we've had mobile quarterbacks who are elusive, We have struggled. We have struggled this season. We got no pressure on Lamar. And I think we rushed scared in that game because of what he could do if he broke contain. So we were really more concerned with let's just keep Lamar bottled up. And it gave him all day to throw the football. But outside of that game, Baker Mayfield was a load for us to deal with. Daniel Jones, we had issues corralling him. And really, he had all day to throw in that game as well. And then, obviously, Caleb Williams was really problematic. So that's something to keep in mind when we go up against the Eagles and any other team that has a quarterback that is mobile, that can extend plays and make things happen. But I like the trajectory of the rush. Guys seem to be having more of a plan. Johnny Newton seems to be starting to get lathered up. That's going to help us a lot if we can start getting pressure from the interior, from him and Payne. And, there were some good rushes off the edge with Frankie, and DFJ wasn't as big of an impact as I thought he could be. And Clee had some good rushes, obviously almost got the safety. So I felt really good about the defense coming away from this game. And in my mind, I'm still saying, I'm taking it with a grain of salt. It's Chicago's offense. It's Caleb Williams. He really struggled. You could tell that we didn't respect him. We were really aggressive in how we were coming after him. And we blitzed quite a bit in this game, probably the most we've blitzed all season, because you felt like he can't hurt us. And I didn't disagree with that. So now the next step is you're seeing the Giants for the second time. Daniel Jones seems to play, solid ball against us. Can we do what everybody else has done to the Giants? And can we put the clamps down on their offense? Can we silence them? Can we make them one-dimensional? Can we make Daniel Jones a passer and then take that away? Because if they can't run the ball and Daniel Jones feels the need to have to be the hero, that usually ends well for the Giants, or ends poorly for the Giants. Doesn't end well for them. No Tyrone Tracy, because he sustained a concussion on Monday, right? And look, it's tough to come back from a concussion, a week after you sustain it. Add into the fact that was a Monday night game, and so it's a shorter week. There's no way Tyrone Tracy Jr. is playing. So that's one guy that had a chance to be a pain in the ass that won't be available this week for the Giants. So I want to see how this defense is able to continue to grow and build off of some of the things that they've done well here of late. And I want to see them continue to build confidence. One of the things that happens in this league, like that's why I told you guys I'm really sick about the Eagles' schedule, because what it's effectively done is it's allowed the Eagles to gain confidence. They played bad offenses, which allowed them to gain confidence defensively. And now we'll see if that confidence is allowed to be shaken when they play better offenses. But here's yet again, they're going to play Jacksonville this week, another bad offense that they should be able to dominate, and is going to give them even more confidence defensively. We had the same thing happen to us, right? After the Cincinnati game, we played Arizona. They played arguably their worst game of the season, gave us confidence. The next week we had Cleveland. They were even worse on offense, gave us more confidence. We didn't, parlay that into anything major against Baltimore, but we did hang tough for a half, right? That first half, we were right there, and they weren't going up and down the field on us, especially the first quarter. The second quarter, that's when shit started to go sideways, and we didn't get a stop after the first quarter. So there's that. But, that was a struggle, but then Carolina suffocated them. Bears did much of the same to them. Excuse me. Bless me. So at the end of the day, I like the trajectory. That's 4 out of 5 games that we've played really good football on the defensive side. And I don't think it's a fluke. And I do think the secondary is getting better. I do think the pass rush is getting better. I do think the run defense is getting better. Right now, with the run defense, the thing that I worry about is, first of all, I don't like Emmanuel Forbes being in the game, because Emmanuel Forbes does not tackle. And that is apparent, and we can't have that. That's the reason why Michael Davis can't get on the field, because we gave him a chance in week 2 and he blew it, right? Can't put guys out there that are a liability in terms of just getting guys on the ground. That's a non-starter. And Forbes is one of those dudes that just struggles to get people on the ground, and he's not willing to put his body, in the fray, right? But one of the things that I worry about with this defense is big plays, right? Specifically on the ground. We've given up chunk plays on the ground in a bunch of games this season. We have a couple of big runs against Tampa in week 1. We gave up a couple of nice hits against the Giants and Devin Singletary in week 2. As a matter of fact, the play that he fumbled on where Benjamin St. Juste poked it free, that was a nice run, right? That was like a gain of 18 or so, and then Benjamin came at the end and punched it out, and Jeremy Chin recovered. But that was a nice run. And remember, he had like 95 yards on just 12 carries or something. Like, he was killing us, right? I don't think the Bengals had tremendous success on the ground. The Cardinals, we know James Conner ate our lunch in that game. But there were, slew of nice runs. He was well over 100 yards rushing against us. We've gotten better, right? But there's still, chunk runs that are happening. The first possession against Carolina, if you remember, they were moving the ball. Why? They had a huge chunk run to the former Eagle running back, Miles Sanders. They did a jet sweep to him. It was a kind of a dope play. I think he was kind of like offset, lined up, and they just had a quick handoff to him. He turns the corner, gets up the sideline. It's like a gain of like 27, 30, right? Like, we are susceptible to giving up big yards on the ground. And like, we could be, a quarter and a half of just, no gain of 1, gain of 2, gain of 2, gain of 1, gain of none, gain of -1, gain of -2, and then boom, 5, 7, 27, 6, 1, 2, 2, 1, none, 16. And it's like, yo, can we just limit those? Can we cap those runs? Can we not give up those big? Because when you play like the Eagles right now, the biggest issue with defending Philadelphia is Saquon. At any moment, Saquon can pop one for 57. Like, he's their offense right now. And that run against Chicago by DeAndre Swift, that run worries me because we've got teams left on the schedule that, if we're not careful, they can pop one too. And it could change the course of a game. Specifically Philadelphia. You worry about a team like that. You worry about that against Atlanta. They run it very well through the Falcons, and they got dynamic backs, especially Bijan Robinson, that can take it the distance. And so we got to clean that up. But I think the pass defense is getting better, not just because the pass rush is getting better, but also because I think the guys in the secondary are getting better as well, and they're communicating a lot better. So that was really refreshing to see on the film. But offensively, it was exactly what we thought. There were opportunities that were missed. The penalties were killers, and those were penalties. Like, we went back, we watched these plays 3-4 times. I wanted them to be nitpicky so I could be super, super aggressive towards the officials and say, oh man, they screwed us. Like, I remember going back and watching the Ravens game with the mob and coming away saying, yeah, okay, all right, the officials screwed us. Like, they really, really made it a lopsided affair. Like, they really hurt us with the penalties in the game. There were really no subjective calls. They left those out of the game. There were only black and white calls in this game. There were very few gray area calls. Gray area calls are the ones that are subjective. Illegal contact, pass interference, roughing the passer. They left those type of penalties out of this game. Like, Jayden got crushed on a play where I'm like, come on, like, he wasn't crushed. That's exaggerated. He got contacted on the play. The Terry deep ball, he had no business getting touched on that play. He had delivered the ball already. Montez Sweat took 2.5 steps and then hit him and tried to hold him up. And then I'm like, no, the damage is done, bro. You already contacted him for no reason. Throw the flag. And we hit Caleb a couple times. Nothing. Like, they weren't doing that in this game. if it was an illegal shift, if it was a legal man downfield, right? Like the easy, black and white. Either you did or you didn't. Either you were on the line of scrimmage or you weren't. Either you had two guys moving at the same time that didn't reset or you didn't, right? Either you had a man illegally downfield or you didn't. Those were the calls. I can respect that. And those were fouls on us, by the way. The De'Ami Brown screen, wide receiver screen that was erased, we were way down the field. And the bad part was we had guys way down the field that had nothing to do with the play, that didn't impact the play whatsoever. I was like, Sam Cosmi was only a half yard past the line of scrimmage. It's a bad call. No, Sam Cosmi was like 7 yards down the field when the ball was finally caught. Nick Allen, like, oh, Nick Allegretti. Oh, no. Nick Allegretti's like 11 yards down the field. When this play is like, what are we doing here, guys? What are we doing? So, no, we did it to ourselves. Like, Trenton Scott had 2 false starts. No, Trent Scott moved twice. Like, those are real penalties. We can't do that to ourselves. The opportunities were there, right? The opportunities were there, and we were moving the ball. And something else I did notice too in this game in particular was Jayden not being a big part of the run game. I thought stifled it in the second half. Now, there was also a large chunk of this game where there was no B-Rob. He was noticeably absent. I don't know why they chose to do that. It felt like 2, maybe 3 possessions straight of just Austin Eckler. And I love Eck, want him out there, but I love B-Rob more. And I want him out there more, especially in these types of physical, grueling games. And again, this might be load management, right? They understand what they're doing. I don't second guess them. Everything that they do, I think, is done with purpose and intent. So this could be load management on B-Rob. Like, hey, we don't want B-Rob having any more than 15 to 17 carries. And as we try to approach that, let's scale him back a bit and let's get Austin Eckler some touches so that we don't overwork B-Rob in that knee. You know what I'm saying? So I can't say that they're doing things just out of the blue. I think everything that they've done this season has been intentional, but clearly in the second half, the run game was not as effective. And I think some of that had to do with the fact that Jayden himself was not a threat as a runner. So they didn't have to really deal with that like other teams had to this season when defending us. And then I thought that, B-Rob's physicality was missed, in the second half when we were trying to, kind of run the football. The Bears defensively did a really good job of shutting the run game down, putting us in some longer down and distances than we would have liked to have been in. But one of the biggest things, and I talked about this, I'm pretty sure I did to you guys, but watching it back, and I know I did because I was adamant about it. As I was watching the game, as soon as we were done with the game, I was even more adamant about it, and watching it once more solidified it. Their punter, Torrey Taylor, was the MVP of the game for the Bears, without question. That was the worst field position game we had this season. I told the mob, I said, I'm guessing, I can't confirm nor deny this, but I told the mob that I feel like we had more possessions start inside the 5 and the 10-yard line in that game than we had the entire season combined. He pinned our ass inside the 10 at least 5 or 6 times in the game. My guess is we probably had 11 possessions or so in that game. My guess is 5 or 6 of them started inside our own 10-yard line. That's my guess. He was amazing. He was amazing. And we're not accustomed to starting our drives like that. We've done it before. Arizona, we had like a 96-yard drive for a touchdown. Baltimore, we had a pretty long drive. The Carolina game right before half, that was a pretty substantial drive, probably 91 yards or so, something like that. We were backed up pretty good. That we scored the touchdown on break before the half. We've had some drives like that, but never that many in one game. And against a Bears defense that's pretty stout and pretty good, it's tough to go, 95 yards against that defense without something, going awry. And so it was really disappointing to see their punter perform as well as he did. I mean, we didn't have any control over that. This man Coffin kicked one of his final punts. He coughing the one that a lot of you thought we should have gone for it. The man Coffin kicked the football all the way down to like the 7-yard line. Like, who does that? Like, what? Unreal. Yeah, we had awful starting field position the entire game, and that didn't help either. But even with that said, it still was our highest, total yardage game of the season. We moved the ball, and there were some opportunities for some scores. And when you watch the game back, you're like, man, if Andrew Wiley is able to just remotely redirect Montez Sweat on the first possession on the third down, I haven't seen a receiver that wide open this season for us in the end zone. Luke McCaffrey that was a busted coverage by the Bears. Let's just call it what it was. He runs that corner route, and there is no Bear within 7 yards of him in any direction. And that's why when Jayden got hit and he threw that ball in the back corner, and we were all thinking he was throwing it away, and Luke's just standing there. And that ball was in the air forever because he couldn't get a ton on it because he was being yoked up as he was throwing it. The reason why that ball still got there is because there was no Bear within 7 yards of him in any direction. They turned him loose. And if Wiley just blocks, like if he just shoves Tez inside just a step, it's a touchdown. But that was the way the day went for us. We just couldn't get out of our own way, right? So it was Metaphor said 5 inside the 10, 3 of which inside the 5. We can't make this shit up. 5 of our possessions started inside the 10, and 3 of those 5 started inside the 5. Like, he was ridiculous. Okay. Torrey Taylor was ridiculous in this game. And so there were a lot of factors working against us, and we still found a way to overcome. And that, my friends, is why you should feel really good about this team moving forward. That was not one of our best performances. We showed perseverance, and we showed the ability to overcome a lot of our own, shortcomings, and still found a way to win. And you call it luck, call it whatever you like, but it's a win. And that's what the good teams in this league do. They find a way to win. Wasn't pretty, but it was gritty. And most importantly, it was a dub. But now we move on, right? Enough of that. We've basked in the Washington walk-off, aka the Bear Trap, aka Noah's Ark. We've basked in that. We've had awards given. I saw Noah Brown and Jayden Daniels posing with the Hemi Award, right? And the Washington Commanders social media team renamed it the Themi, right? But that's all fine and dandy, but that's now also in the past. We got a new opponent, and their name is the New York Giants, as we go to In Other News. And we got to focus all of our attention there, because if you have hopes and aspirations of winning this division, I mean, we were talking extra greasy yesterday, man. My lips essentially were covered in Crisco yesterday. We were talking so greasy about the number 1 seed and a first round bye. And I mean, we were talking crazy yesterday. The reason you can do that is you take care of opponents like the Giants. We got to sweep them. All right. This is another opportunity to put another tally mark in the left-hand column, get closer to being a playoff team this year, because I don't know if you've noticed, NFC, a lot of teams winning football games. That whole NFC North, they trying to make the playoffs, right? Don't count Dallas out yet, even though I think we can stick a fork in them pretty, soon. We'll see. I think they're going to Atlanta and winning. I've already told you that. I think the Cowboys are going to Atlanta this week and going to beat the Atlanta Falcons. And that's going to give them a chance to hang around, right? But they got the Eagles the following week, and That'll tell me just how serious Dallas really truly is. If they can beat Atlanta, then somehow find a way to beat Philly, then they're right back in the mix. If they lose either one of those games, they're still sub 500, and you're getting closer and closer to a point of no return if you're Dallas. But you know, 2 teams are coming out of this division, that's for sure, in the playoffs, right? Or you would think, you know, at least 3 are coming out of the North. You would think, could be 4, depending on how things go in our division, right? Somebody's got to win the South. Somebody's got to win the West, right? And who knows? Somebody can get hot in the West. San Francisco, the Rams, right? Somebody could get hot. Seattle could just keep, you know, hanging around. Arizona, like that division, we could sit here and talk shit about it. Everybody in that division's 4-4 except for the Rams, and they might be the most dangerous team right now. They're 3-4. So you look around the conference, there aren't many bad teams. Most of the really bad teams in the NFL reside on the other side of the bracket. The Giants are really probably the worst team in the conference. The Jacksonvilles and the Tennessees and the New Englands and Carolina too. Carolina and the Giants are the 2 worst teams in the conference, right? But you look around, there's a lot of teams playing solid football. So we want to distance ourselves from them. We want to distance ourselves from the solid teams. We want to be one of the upper echelons. We don't want to be a part of the middle class. We want to be part of the haves. So this is one of those games you got to get. So we'll hear from DQ, respond to what he had to say. Jayden as well stepped up to the podium. That's a good sign. Remember, last week he didn't even meet with the media on Wednesday. That was Marcus Mariota. I told you last week that the mind games that the Commanders played going into the game was masterful. It was a master class on how you don't show your hand. I think they knew from the word go that Jayden was starting on Sunday, and they played it beautifully. I didn't think he was playing. So I already told you, they got me. They had me. That's a hell of a job of acting. I love it. But this week, he's meeting with the media. He's good, right? So that's a good sign, by the way. So let's take a look at this injury report first. Talk about what this looks like. You know, a couple of names up here that you don't want to see, but all in all, this might be the best injury report since week 1. Right? This might be the best injury report since week 1. Let's take a look. We start with the good guys. And Zach Ertz always rests on Wednesday. Cornelius Lucas, ankle. We did not know what the extent of the injury was. Now we do. It's an ankle. I actually feel better about that. I was nervous because last week he was on the injury report for a neck. So when I watched him walk into the locker room, I really didn't see him favoring anything. So I was worried that something had gone awry with his neck. That's a lot worse. Anytime you're talking neck, nerve damage, anything, there's no real timetable for that because you don't know when your nerves are going to get back to full strength, right? It's an ankle, right? Nick Allegretti had an ankle, taped that puppy up, and he's been in the lineup. And that happened in Arizona in week number 4, right? So no telling the severity of Cornelius Lucas's ankle injury. No telling the severity of it. But I feel good about Cole Luke if it's an ankle, right? Shin for Frankie Louvu didn't practice. Again, not too concerned. I've always told you guys this. Wednesday is the day to miss. If you want to give a guy an extra day, you know, he's been getting treatment. Wednesday's the day, right? I'm not concerned, but if he doesn't practice tomorrow, then we can have a conversation. I think he'll be back tomorrow, even if it's on a limited basis. I see this as a non-issue right now. Brandon Coleman, DQ gave us an update on Cornelius Lucas, and Jayden Daniels. Obviously, Daniels and Coleman both practiced on a limited basis. Meanwhile, Cornelius Lucas did not practice, but Coleman being back on a limited basis is a great sign. It means he's trending in the right direction in the concussion protocol. I already told you I thought he'd be back this week anyway. I said he's not playing last week. I expect him to play this week. And if everything continues trending in the right direction, he should be available on Sunday, which is a good thing. Jayden Daniels and his ribs limited. Again, he should be fine. Cleveland Farrell and his knee limited. Hopefully, Clee continues to be fine. Brian Robinson Jr. See, this is a different injury. At first, it was a knee. Now it is a hamstring. That might be the answer to our question as to why he wasn't in the game a ton in the second half. It might have tightened up on him. He might not have pulled anything. It might have just gotten tight. And as a precautionary measure, they may have just pulled him from the game because we did not see a ton of Brian Robinson Jr. in the second half. And it was really, really strange. Now, he did come back in the game. It's not like he didn't play in the second half. We saw him. It just wasn't a ton. Olamide Zaccheaus, hamstring, limited. You never want to hear about a hamstring with any running back, receivers, skill position guys, corners, etc. Like, those are huge. Hopefully, these are minor. You're talking about like some tightness, and then you just move on, right? We'll see. The OZ isn't just a receiver. He isn't just a gadget guy that we can run things to. He's not just a physical guy that blocks and hustles and does all the dirty work. He also returns punts for us. Like, we don't really have anybody else to do that. Now, I think Jamison Crowder was placed on IR, if I'm not mistaken. I would assume that his window could be opened here any time now. So if they wanted to replace OZ, it'd be Jamison Crowder, you would think, would be the logical replacement. So again, we'll see. It may not be that serious. And then Terry hasn't been on. I can't remember the last time Terry McLaurin was even on an injury report. Like, I think you might have to go back to 2020. And I could just be forgetting. He could have been up there last year, the year before, but he doesn't show up on the injury report very often. I remember in 2020 when we were chasing after the division, he had 2 sprained ankles, right? And he played every week. Ankle injury for Terry, full participant. I don't think there's anything to see here. So this looks good. This not a lot of guys. Most of them we know are going to be fine. Again, I worry about Brian Robinson Jr. and Olamide Zaccheaus when I see hamstring. I worry about Frankie Louvu. I see shin, DMP. But, we'll see tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to really bring clarity, I believe, on some of these guys. And now that the media has seen the injury report for the first time this week, now if you feel the need, you can ask, hey, what's the deal with such and such? Now, you're not going to have access to DQ until Friday. So, and a lot of these, you can't ask Joe Witt Jr. or Cliff Kingsbury about any of these injuries. They don't know. So, like I said, not a terrible injury report. Now we get to the ops, and this is a pretty significant, like, in terms of its length list. It's not a lot of big names up here that really move the needle per se. But then again, how many needle movers do the Giants actually have? Matthew Adams, knee. Josh Azudu, knee. Bryce Ford Wheaton, Achilles. Jamie Gillen, left hamstring. Dexter Lawrence, just rest. And Amir Smith Marset, ankle, and Tyrone Tracy Jr., concussion protocol, all did not practice. Now, of those names, the only one that really jumps off maybe 3 of them do. Azudu has been playing all over the offensive line for them, including left tackle. Jamie Gillen, their punter, and Tyrone Tracy Jr., their rookie running back, who has been exceptional here of late, are all names to continue to watch. Dexter Lawrence obviously is fine. He's a menace. You get to the guys that were limited: Brian Burns, Achilles and bicep; Jermaine and Luminor, hip; Cordell Flott, groin; Trey Hawkins III, ankle; Adoree Jackson, neck; Jake Kubas, abdomen; John Michael Schmitz, calf; and Ty Summers, ankle. Of that group, Burns, Luminor, Flott, and John Michael Schmitz are all significant names, but they all practice on some basis. So you'd like to think that they're trending in the right direction to play, but we'll see. We'll keep our eye on everything. A lot of names, some impactful, others not so much. At the end of the day, we just got to find a way to get the job done against this Giants football team, right? So, let's talk about what was said at the presser for both head coach Dan Quinn and quarterback Jayden Daniels. We'll start with head coach Dan Quinn. DQ talked about obviously some of the injuries that were sustained. And so he gave us a brief update on how everyone was doing there. He talked about, Johnny Newton and, his evolution and really the entire rookie class he was asked about. And he talked about their maturity, guys being ready to come in and contribute and play, and, being a part of this brotherhood essentially that they've cultivated. These guys have fit right in, and they've had really good mentors to look up to and kind of assimilate themselves really well. And again, we've counted on a number of these guys to not just play, but to play at a high level, right? Obviously, Jayden Daniels and what he's done, Mike Samer still and what he's done. Ben Sinnott has been a huge part of this offense, strictly as a blocker, but he's been massive, right? Brandon Coleman, playing, half the snaps just about every game almost. I think probably with the exception of maybe 2 or 3. So even Jayden talked about, some of these young guys getting opportunities and what they've done with it in his draft class, right? And how close knit they are and things of that nature. But DQ kind of spoke to that. DQ talked about O-line Bobby Johnson. Obviously, we're playing the Giants and his impact on the offensive line. And, he said, look, I can't speak to what happened in New York. I can tell you that he's a great teacher. He's done a phenomenal job here, along with the assistant offensive line coaches. They've really helped with the run game, whether it's from the gun, the pistol, the, under center. They've done a tremendous job with the run game in particular. And, we've mixed and matched some parts here of late, and we haven't really missed a beat. So a lot of credit needs to be given to O-line Bobby Johnson, and DQ essentially said that. DQ talked about this was big. This was one of the more impactful things he talked about at the press conference, was something that I somewhat alluded to on the head-to-head with Bad Dog earlier today. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, go ahead over to the NFC East Super Friends channel after this is over, of course, and check it out. But he talked about the letdown factor, right? That was an emotional high. Sunday was. That was an emotional victory. I mean, in this league, the teams that are able to keep their cool and be more even keel are the teams that are more successful. The teams that ride that roller coaster of emotion and are up one week, down the next, those are the teams that are inconsistent, because you don't know what type of performance you're going to get from week to week. One thing I can say about this group that they've done a phenomenal job of, and DQ kind of alluded to this, was they've done a great job of staying even keel. You win a game, you celebrate it, then you get back to work. Like this isn't something that lingers into Wednesday and Thursday. You win a game, you celebrate it that night, and for the staff, they get back to work on Monday, that very next day, right? For the players, enjoy it Monday as well, right? Tuesday is your day off, but you should be coming in, getting treatment, and a lot of them we've heard they're coming in and they're watching film on the next opponent, right? The next week's opponent. So Jayden talked about, I essentially flushed this after Monday. We had Sunday night, we had Monday. By Tuesday, I was on to the Giants, essentially. So what I've seen from this team is I don't expect an emotional letdown. They haven't shown me anything that would lead me to believe that they're going to come out flat because they were emotionally spent after the dramatic victory in Week 8 versus the Bears on Sunday. I just don't see this team doing that, because they could have done the same thing. That was an emotionally charged victory on the road in Week 3 against Cincinnati, and instead they hopped aboard a plane and went straight to Arizona and stayed there the entire week, and then proceeded to whoop the Arizona Cardinals' ass. Like, this team isn't for the letdown. This team isn't about, being full of themselves, right? And believing that they've arrived. We've seen teams in the past do that, where they thought they had arrived, and we saw them not play the kind of football that we had seen them play before. So DQ was like, I talked to them about this. Like, this isn't something that I just kind of let linger or, danced around the top. No, we directly spoke about not having that emotional letdown, getting back to work, fine-tuning the things that did not work in the game, and getting back to playing the type of football that we know we can play. So I thought that's something that I was really glad to hear, because I think that was something that I needed to hear as a fan, to feel good about going into this game against a team that, easily could have won. I literally told Bad Dog, you were a Malik Neighbors 4th down catch where he was wide ass open from winning that ball game, right? And who knows what happens to our season? We start 0-2. We are not sitting here having a conversation that we are currently having about this team. So, one drop could change everything, and it did essentially. And DQ talked about self-scouting and going back and kind of figuring out some of the things that they did against the Giants that were successful, and then some of the things that weren't successful the first time. And trying to see the growth of this team, right? And then the growth of the Giants, and where they are now versus where they were back in week 2. Same could be said for us. And so, DQ really feels good about this team. And, he talked about, Jayden and some of the throws that he's made this season. And he talked about a number of things that I think he's getting more and more comfortable with this group. And I think he realizes there's a chance. They asked, about all the trades that are going on around the league, and how do you balance that? He's like, that ain't my job. That's DQ's. That's AP's job. That's the good thing, is we talk about injury report, we talk about certain things, but as far as making trades and things of that nature, that's AP's lane. So I think DQ's in a really good spot, like, with this team, and he's doing a hell of a job. And I really haven't had this conversation a ton. I think yesterday was the first time when I was kicking it and chopping it up with the fellas yesterday on the Commanders King stream. That was the first time I really even truly entertained the whole coach of the year idea. Like, that's a real thing, and he has to be one of the lead candidates right now for head coach of the year. He has to be, along with Kevin O'Connell, who thought the Vikings would be where they are, right? And he's not alone. I've said this already. The Packers, with the injury to Jordan Love early in the season, and then Jordan got injured again against Jacksonville, and Malik Willis had to come in again. For them to be, 5-2 right now, I believe the Packers are 6-2, whatever their record is. It's phenomenal, being that they've dealt with some of these injuries. Now, granted, they play the AFC South, so that's Tennessee, and it's Jacksonville, and they've taken advantage of those teams. And Indy, they've taken advantage of those teams, but they also had to beat Houston, and they did that too. So JD, on the other hand, obviously the first question was, how you feeling? How's the ribs? He's like, yo, I'm here. I'm intact. Just taking it day by day. So they asked him, is this essentially a pain tolerance thing? And he was like, yes. And let me just go back, being that we're on the topic of JD. DQ talked about JD's ribs, and he was asked, is this going to be a kind of a season-long thing? He's like, it could be, right? Like, we want his ribs to get better, but we don't know if they're going to. This might be a thing that we got to manage for the rest of the season. My guess is if we can just somehow get to week number 11, get through week 11, I think that extra, 4 days off, that 10-day layoff between the Thursday nighter against the Eagles and the week 12 game against the Cowboys will be excellent in terms of rest for some guys with some nicks and bruises. And then the bye week is just right around the corner after that. So we could just somehow get to that week 11 matchup and get through it with Philadelphia. I like where we would be sitting from a health standpoint if we can get there and get through it relatively healthy with the guys that already have nicks and bruises, including Jayden Daniels. So he was like, yo, I'm intact. I'm good. It is what it is. He said that the ribs is definitely a pain tolerance thing. Like as a football player, you have to have a high threshold for pain and the tolerance of it, because you're going to have stuff that you got to play through: ankles, knees, elbows. How many guys you see with those big ass JJ Watt reinforced elbow pads with like 6 pads and 6 straps? Shit start all the way here and go all the way up here, right? You think that shit's comfortable? Hell no. And that's protecting something. But that's what these guys do, right? They strap it up and they say, figure it out, right? Yeah, that shit hurts, but that's what they do. So he talked about the rookie class, and he gave Johnny Newton some love, and it was like he finally got his sack, which, we were debating on, like, yo, league, what are you doing? That was a sack. And so they finally changed it officially and gave him his first career sack. And he talked about Javonte having some success early on, which he did. He talked about all of those dudes in the draft class and how they've fared. And he said it's not just the draft class. He's like, I'm definitely close with them, but he said we're close with the entire team. It's a brotherhood, and we got a really special bond with all of those guys in the locker room. Jayden talked about the challenge of facing a team for the second time, for the first time in his career. And he said, yeah, we definitely went back, watched some of week 2's, action, and, kind of saw some of the coverages and looks they were giving me. And obviously, we don't know if they're going to give us those same looks. They could switch it up, but you got some kind of working knowledge of this is how they like to play this is how they like to play that. And then, you see if you can't try and take advantage of that. So he acknowledged, and he was asked on several occasions about playing a team for the second time, for the first time in his career. And would that be different? Obviously, that's not something that happens in college unless you play a team, say, in the regular season and in the conference championship or something like that. It's rare that you're going to play a team twice in the same season in college ball. So this is a little bit different for him. And, he talked about the aftermath of the Washington walk-off, and he's like, yo, it was pretty much status quo for me. I really didn't do much after the fact. My phone wasn't like super blowing up. Like, that's Jayden though, right? He just kind of keeps it level, right? They asked him about the degree of difficulty throws that he's been making and what lends that to happening, and he's like, I don't really know. They also stumped him with this when they asked him, to this point, how would you describe the first half of your rookie season and your performance? And he was like, I ain't really never thought about that. I have to get back to you on that. So, he definitely, you could tell, is having fun. They asked him about his, rapport with Terry, and he talked about that. And he said, I get the ball to Terry when the defense permits it, essentially the deep ball. He's like, Terry is, a stud receiver, and anytime I can get it to him, I'm gonna try to. And if they let me, if the defense gives me opportunities, I'll take advantage of it, getting him the football. So Jayden is definitely locked and loaded, and I think he's a lot better off this week than he was last week. And so we'll see if that is in fact the case, or or if it's not. This is a dangerous Giants defensive front, so he's gonna have to, be mindful of that, and you hope that you got somebody at left tackle that you can trust. It's probably going to be Coleman. We'll see what Lucas does tomorrow, right? So anyway, I digress. Let's take our first look at the New York Football Giants. I've kind of spoken about them on several occasions today, alluding to what kind of challenges they may pose and some of the threats that they bring to the table. The biggest thing for us in this game is we need to establish who the alpha is early. Like in the games we've played this season where we've played inferior opponents, we've done a pretty good job. I think with the exception of Cleveland in the first quarter of jumping on these teams. Arizona, remember the defense gave up a touchdown on the first possession. We went right back down the field and matched. I don't think we've scored a opening possession touchdown since Arizona. Like I need one of those in my life. We haven't scored a touchdown at all this season versus the Giants. I need one of those in my life. But, I was thinking about this the other day. We didn't score a touchdown against Cleveland. Obviously, we threw the interception on that opening possession, if I'm not mistaken. Either that or it's a field goal. Week 6 against Baltimore, we got the interception and settled for a field goal. Week 7 versus Carolina, we scored a touchdown on defense, but then Jayden got hurt and we ended up settling for a field goal on offense. So we didn't score an offensive touchdown in week 7. And then week 8, we didn't score a touchdown in the game until the Hail Mary. So we didn't score a touchdown on the opening possession there either, even though we did move the football and end up kicking a field goal. So we haven't scored, a touchdown in the first quarter. We haven't scored a touchdown early in ball games here of late. Like when we started out the season, we were super efficient. The weeks 3 and 4 in particular, we went right down the field and scored touchdowns on the opening possession of the game. And I think largely in part because the defense gave it up. They had to go and respond immediately. When I look at this game, I want them to come out with that same level of aggression against the Giants and establish who the alpha is, right? The longer you let a team like the Giants hang around, the more likely it is you're going to have a fight on your hands. So if we can get these boys out of there, and I think they're working on a streak now. I think Bad Dog told me something like Daniel Jones has not thrown a touchdown pass at home in like 20 something quarters. That can't be right. That's asinine. But I do know that they haven't scored but one touchdown at home this season. So they are struggling, and that's to say the least. So we got to continue to force them to struggle. They right now are not a good team. They're trying to execute the play, and we got to help them. We got to help them. I don't think they're going to have Tyrone Tracy. That's going to hurt their run game. You need to shut down everybody else and essentially force Daniel Jones to beat you. I mean, it's not a hard plan. You just got to go out and execute, right? So, and yes, Jayden said that about the Bears game. It doesn't matter how we won that game or, if we won that game. He said you could win 5 games in a row. And if you lose the next one, that's all anybody's going to want to talk about. And he's not wrong. We had won 4 straight going into that Ravens game. 4 straight. We were 4-1. And we lost to the Ravens. And that's all anybody wanted to talk about was losing to the Ravens. So, yeah, he's not wrong. That's definitely something that you got to live in the now. You got to be where your feet are. So let's get to social media maneuvers. I'm a midnight marauder. Y'all know what it is if you're out there. We're going to get to your comments right now. see what you guys have to say. So let's get to the comment section. Doj 3Ms, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, just got to fix the red zone woes, 24th in the league. I've said that one of my biggest concerns with this team is red zone efficiency. And I want to, and I got to make it specific to red zone efficiency at home. I told you already, we are one of the best road red zone teams in the league. We're scoring at an 85% clip, and that's not a small sample size. We've had 4 road games, right? We were one of those teams that were playing a ton of road games to start. So there's enough of a sample size to say, no, they're scoring points in the red zone on the road. Cincinnati, 38. Arizona, 42, right? Baltimore, we didn't score a bunch of points, but we scored a couple of red zone touchdowns. I think we were 2 of 3 in the red zone in that game. So we've been really good. Every trip I think we had in the red zone against Tampa, we scored on. Brian Robinson Jr. had 2 runs, and Jayden had 2 runs, and B-Rob had 1 touchdown run. So we scored, I think, on every red zone possession against Tampa in week 1 too. So that's been very encouraging. But somehow at home, we are just god awful. Can't get out of our way, penalties, mistakes, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what's brought the number down significantly. We have to tighten up in the red zone. That's our biggest issue, I think, right now, is the inability to punch the football into the end zone, specifically after something happens, some sort of mistake that sets us back. Got to clean that up. I agree with you, Doj 3Ms. Pit Fight Entertainment, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, we are an intentionally designed, purpose-built machine. Eagles win now lineup is headed towards expiration. We are lean, built to last, star QB on a rookie deal, and a freshly opened Super Bowl window. Raise hell. That's well said. That's why I don't really see anything happening at the trade deadline. I see us standing pat. Even though it was crazy, I was watching. I don't know how I ended up watching Adam Peters in the war room on the phone with Howie Roseman, conducting a little family business during the draft as far as the trade is concerned. And it's crazy to see, like, AP just like, in this deal, we're losing a pick. I don't want to lose a pick. And so he called Roseman back and said, hey, I don't want to lose a pick, so throw 161 in there, and we got a deal. And Howie tried to lowball him, Howie tried to get him for a little more, tried to give up a little less, and Chef P wasn't going for it. But it just got me to thinking about how he values draft picks. I mean, this man wasn't even willing to wait to see if Cade York could figure it out in week 2. He knew that if York was still on the roster by week 2, they were on the hook for a 7th round pick. He was like, nah, I want my damn 7th round pick. So he cut Cade York after 1 week. So this roster is going to be built, and it's going to be built to last so it can be sustained, right? That's what we want, a sustainable winner, right? That's what we're after. When it's all said and done, we want a team that each and every season is in the mix to compete, which is what, truth be told, that's what the Eagles have become, right? Now, they've been bounced in the first round, a couple of times, but by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, coincidentally enough, but they're in the mix, and that's what you want, right? Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Metaphor, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, LB talking dirty on NFC East recap like they kings. Puss. I mean, what did you think he was going to do, right? Like, I haven't watched it, but I assume it's a lot of jibber jabber. It's a lot of jibber jabber about, it's still their division. They got the better quarterback. Jayden Daniels isn't better than Hurts. I mean, I know his move, right? I studied all of his moves. I know what they look like. So he's threatened, and I love that. I love the fact that we've taken the place of Dallas and that we do occupy some space in his brain. And so now we just got to take care of business. That's the biggest thing. Continue to take care of business. Metaphor. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Metaphor. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? I'm at MetLife Sunday with my kid. I got you, Mob. You know what to do, man. I don't really have to tell you. You know what to do. It was funny, you know, a reporter brought up MetLife Stadium and the turf, and Jayden was like, shit was fine when I was there. I think he didn't remember that we went to the Jets. We went to MetLife in the preseason, and that was, you know, Jayden's first taste of the NFL. Through the deep ball to Diami, ended up running the ball in for a touchdown. So he's comfortable. He's comfortable. He should be, at least. You know what to do. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy. Steve Mac, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the family. 25th rush D, giving up 139.6 yards a game. 29th red zone D, 69.6. And 23rd defense against on third downs. 40% given up there. 2 questions. 1 and 2. What do you think Joe Witt Jr. can do to help with his with the scheme, and how much of this is not having the pieces, and why? It's a combination of both. I hate to take that cop out, but when you're trying to do certain things, it could be altered by what you don't do or don't have. If you want to be a high pressure team, you got to be able to cover with your corners, because you got to play man, right? If you want to drop and play coverage, you better be able to cover, because you're not getting to the quarterback. So it's like a happy medium that you have to find. And look, Joe Witt Jr. is doing the best he can with what he's been given. And eventually, I think he's going to maximize what this defense can be. But I'm just proud of where we've gotten to. And I spent pretty much the entire beginning of the show with the lead story talking about the growth of this defense and how impressed I was with them in the game against Chicago. So I do think that Witt can continue to move certain guys around. Like 90% of the time when Bobby Wagner blitzes is right up the A-gap. Probably 70% of the time when Frankie Louvu blitzes is right up the A-gap. If Louvu isn't blitzing the A-gap, he's coming off the edge as a rusher. But when he's blitzing, it's usually right up the A-gap. I'd like to see them flood aside, overload aside, right? I haven't really seen that. So I like to see them schematically, and I pointed some things out, like a full pressure that he had that was nice against the Bears, where we made it look like it was a 5-man pressure. One guy dropped out on the right side of the defense, and on the left side, you had Frankie replace that guy as a rusher. But because they thought that everybody was coming on that play, the protection was set up that the running back ended up one-on-one with the linebacker. Now, we did not win on that particular rep, but that's what you want. You want to create those matchups, or as they like to say, feed the studs. You want to feed your stud. And they talked about Frankie Louvu. You know, last week, Joe Witt Jr. said Frankie Louvu is the equivalent of Michael Parsons within the framework of this defense and how they utilize him. That he's not saying he's that type of talent. So I do think you can move some guys around, do a little something, but for the most part, we got what we got, right? And you can only scheme it up so much. I mean, Benjamin St. Juste was in the perfect position, and at the end of that game against the Bears, and he still committed pass interference, and the ball was put at the 1-yard line. So Just never know. Steve Taylor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Steve writes, "What's up, Lou? What's up, Steve? Daniel Jones' last home TD was 1-1-23. So he has not thrown a home touchdown this year. That's what you're telling me. That's a streak. That's a real thing. 1-1-23. I wonder if that was that Eagles Giants beatdown from last year. Probably not. But that's a long time. Let's not be streak breakers. You know, we've done a pretty good job of not being streak breakers this year. I remember week 1, Tampa hadn't scored on an opening possession in ages. And for a while there, it felt like we were going to give up a touchdown on that opening possession. But luckily enough for us, their rookie receiver dropped that pass, or else we would have given it up and we would have been a streak breaker again. So let's not break any streaks here. He hasn't had a touchdown pass. Let's keep it that way. Thanks for that, Steve. John Perez, my guy. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. JP writes, Lou, good to see you as always. Likewise, JP. It's G-Men hate week. Let's get a dub. Also, would you trade a day 3 pick for Zadarius Smith or Harold Landry or Greg Newsome? I don't think the Browns are looking to deal Greg Newsome. I could be wrong about that. I would be interested in Greg Newsome. Zadarius Smith is definitely a guy that I'm all in on if they wanted to go get him. And I've already told you, as long as you stay away from my day 1 and 2 picks, I don't give a shit what you do in day 3. I don't care. If they want a 4, well, I think I saw the post that you made that the Browns are looking for a day 2 pick. Obviously a 3rd round pick. I think is what they're trying to get a day 2 pick out of Zadarius Smith. And I think most teams are looking at like, shit. But he's a difference maker. He's still getting pressure on the quarterback. He's still playing the run effectively. He still plays hard. So I would love to see them go after Zadarius Smith. Harold Landry, I think it's going to cost you a little bit more. If I'm Tennessee, I'm not giving up Harold Landry for a song. I definitely got to have a day 2 pick for Harold Landry. So, again, we'll see if there's any movement by the Commanders. I don't think there will be. Trade deadline is next week, just so we're clear and we're all on the same page. Trade deadline is next week. So, also wanted to put this bug in your ear. LTN Exclusive presents the trip to the Dominican Republic. That video, I'm doing a live video giving you all the information you need on that trip this Friday at 7 p.m. So I hope you can join me. We'll be live. We'll be tripping out, having a good time, talking about that. It's going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to meeting so many of you on this trip. Remember, only 50 spots available. So get in, and we'll talk about all of the details on Friday, though. So make sure you join me for that. And I'll be putting that together here, putting that link up so you guys will have access to it. But make sure that you join me on Friday, because a number of you have asked me questions regarding the trip. And I've been getting all of the information slowly but surely, putting it all together. So now I have everything. Now I can disseminate that information to you guys. So that'll be this Friday. Hopefully you'll be able to join me for that if you're interested in joining me in the Dominican Republic or Punta Cana on the resort. So that's going to do it for me. Your man, Louie T, here on this installment of Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow, where we'll go behind enemy lines, kind of talk about a number of things. I do want to bring this up too. I want to say this before we get out of here. I was taking a look at, and this was something I really wanted to talk about yesterday, actually. I was taking a look at the power rankings, every week. I just kind of peruse through the power rankings, see where we are, what people think. We are as high as number 4. Sports Illustrated had us number 4 on their power rankings. Most places have us, you know, somewhere in between 9 and 5. I think the highest we were was 4 on Sports Illustrated. I think the lowest was like 9 somewhere, maybe 10. I think someone had us at 10. We were at Bleacher Report had us at 10. We were at 9 on Bleacher Report. So we actually dropped the spot after the Hail Mary. So we went from 9 to 10. But just the fact that we're consistently now in everybody's top 10. And I've been seeing a lot of lists. I know you guys saw the Michael Parsons and Trayvon Diggs show that they did, and where they were talking about Jayden Daniels, and they ranked the quarterbacks in the league. That's, you know, and Trayvon Diggs is like, yo, no, Jayden Daniels, he's Michael Parsons is like, Jayden Daniels is a top 10 quarterback right now. And Diggs said he's higher. And Michael's like, wait, top 5? He's like, yeah. And he was like, well, name your 5 then. And so he's like, he named Jayden. He named Mahomes. He named Jackson, obviously. He named Josh Allen. And then he said, well, and Hurts is playing really well. I was hoping he would name somebody else, not Jalen Hurts. But he named Jalen Hurts. And then Michael's like, yo, Jared Goff playing some good ball right now, too. And so just the fact that, you know, he's in that mix and people recognize, you know, game, and everybody sees it, you know. So when you hear somebody like LB or anybody for that matter, you know, hating, you don't even have to give it the time of day. Those who know, right? Those who know. We got one of them once. So anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I look forward to chopping it up with you tomorrow. We got a lot going on tomorrow. If you're a member of the LTN exclusives, we will have our kickback session tomorrow during the day. LouieTeeNetwork podcast tomorrow. It might be a little bit earlier than normal. We'll see. But you're definitely getting that. Obviously, we have Thursday night football. That's going to be an interesting game. Not one that I'm necessarily looking forward to. I'm done with the Jets, but they're a walking dumpster fire. So we'll talk about that as well tomorrow night, among other things. And then obviously you'll have an upload for the CNN tomorrow as well. And, you know, maybe you'll have a major announcement coming up here shortly too. So stick around for that as well, potentially. So either way, I look forward to kicking it with y'all tomorrow. So I would keep your eyes peeled. I'll just say that. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to seeing you then. Until then, you guys take care. God bless. And good night.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35.